listen, I told you I was going to have a special guest. Actually, I thought I was going to record it. Then I said, no, let me invite the family in so you all can be informed just like I'm informed at the same time. And then if you miss it, then I'll play it back on Saturday. You know what I'm saying? Because we call it Welcome to Heaven Talk. You know what I'm saying? On a Saturday. But anyway, my guest is in the house. Let me stop talking and babbling and rattling on. Let me turn the cameras around. Now, I don't know whether to call him attorney, but he's my friend. He's Roy to me. So I don't know what to call him, but I'll just call him Roy, then I'll let him introduce himself. How you doing, my friend?
I'm doing well, Chef. Thanks for having me. Yeah, I'm a lawyer, a little part-time activist, but a always listener of the Chef Show on Heaven, as you know. So glad to be here to talk a little bit politics this morning.
Yeah. Well, it's an honor to have you in here. This has been a long time coming. We've been working on getting you in here, and always something comes up, and then we were like, okay, let's see how the results. But I'm glad that we waited, because now we can actually talk about what we were talking about.
Right.
You know, and now we can see the proof that it did happen the way that we were talking about it.
Right.
But anyway, first of all, before we do that, Roy, where you from? I mean, are you from Charleston? Are you from New York? I mean, you look like a high school kid, man. Roy, I mean,
So my mom's from South Carolina. I was actually born in Maryland and came down here last time during law school. And have been here ever since. Met my wife in law school and all like that, and so we live right here in Charleston.
Wow, that is phenomenal. Yeah. Well, I'll tell you what, Roy, you're doing a great job in the community. A lot of times, what I love about it, you know, and one day we'll tell the story how Roy and I met, and it was kind of like a love-hate thing, you know. But that's why it's not good to listen to people all the time. Learn people for yourselves.
Right.
And so that's water under the bridge and all that good stuff. And I found you to be a great brother. Love your family. You know, when I first met your wife at that meeting, you know, she was just bubbling. I was like, she can't be real. There's no way in the world, you know. But your family that really care about people.
We do.
And that's important. And that's what caught my attention. And so, but today, Roy, we want to talk about some things that have been, as the young folks say, trending, you know, in our community. Not just our community, but statewide, nationwide. And what perked me to do this was the fact that I was in a conversation with someone here at the station, and they asked me the question. So I thought about it. If they're asking that question, how many other folks may not really know? Because there's so many words or so many phrases, so many definitions, so many, well, I don't know. And then there's so many, well, this is what they are.
Right.
And so I said, I heard Roy do something, and I think it's time for me to bring it to the airways, and let's talk about it. Now, Roy, we all know that not only is our school district, but our families, our lives are very important.
Right.
We're in a time where in the country we've advanced. We feel like we're moving forward, and then all of a sudden here comes something that goes boom. Okay.
Right.
So let me tell you my testimony. When I first heard about Moms for Liberty, I won't say endorsed it. I'm no endorser, nobody, but I was like, oh, finally, you know, we getting this moms together. You know, we go get Girl Scout cookies in the school. You know, that's how I was thinking. You know,
Right.
And I'm not going to throw Kate under the bus, but she too thought. You know, we both thought this was a great thing. You know, we were joining and help sell cookies and stuff.
That sounds good.
It sounds really, really good. And then all of a sudden, you know, someone said, that's not it's not about moms or PTA meetings at all.
Right.
So let's get into it. All right, we're talking about Moms for Liberty. Let's take a few minutes and talk about what is Moms for Liberty and where did this thing come from?
Well, it's an interesting story. You know, Moms for Liberty is really not moms, and they're not for liberty. So that's the important thing to know right off the jump.
Yeah, let's get that out of the way.
Right off the jump. But it all goes back to this idea of the so-called parental rights movement. You know, that's what they say, parental rights. But we have to dig down into the history of what is parental rights.
Okay.
And in the United States, Chef, you know, we've always had some sort of problem with people that are different from us.
Okay.
It goes all the way back to the founding of the nation. And in the 1920s, that's when the, quote, parents' rights movement really started.
Okay.
And what they were looking at then is they did not want people who were different than them. It actually started with the Ku Klux Klan.
Really?
The Ku Klux Klan is what started the parents' rights movement. And this is a quote, actually, from the Grand Dragon at the time, talking about Catholic parents. And he said this: Somehow these mongrel hordes must be Americanized. Failing that, deportation is the only remedy. Democratic education is the one unfailing defense against every kind of alienism in America. And so in the 1920s, parents' rights were focused on state laws prohibiting instruction in foreign languages. In the 1920s, you had a lot of people immigrating here. You had Germans immigrating here.
Correct.
You had the Japanese immigrating to Hawaii. And you had Catholic schools that were being set up. Ku Klux Klan, of course, calls themselves a Christian organization.
Correct.
We all know that's not true, just
Nope.
like the moms
Yeah.
aren't for liberty. But they were against these types of schools teaching into foreign languages because they wanted everybody to be the same. Everybody to be like them. Straight, white, male, quote unquote Christian, cultural Christian, not biblical Christian.
Right. I know the difference. Trust me.
But that was in the 20s. And it goes forward. You look at the 50s, the parents' rights movement started looking at communism. Desegregation started. And white parents were starting to enroll their students in segregated private schools. So then, rather than the integrated public ones. So now you had the people that were parents' rights before that were against private schools because they were teaching in foreign languages that kids could understand,
Gotcha.
coming back and saying, no, private schools are okay as long as they're teaching what we want to have taught, and our kids don't have to go to school with African Americans and other types of people. So 1960s, fast forward, parents' rights movement then, we've got desegregated schools. Dr. Millicent Brown here desegregated the schools in Charleston, as you know. First little girl, we have Brown versus Board of Education,
Correct.
all those cases. Parents' rights groups in the 60s, their focus was they didn't want Black and Latino history taught. As some of these kids started going into schools, we started having integrated schools, they started asking questions in history class about things they had been taught at home. Well, what about this person? What about that person? What about slavery? And so the parents' rights groups, they didn't want that history taught. That was the focus. Fast forward to the 90s.
Come on. Wow.
Parents' rights groups then pushing for the removal of sex education from public schools. And the focus was, quote unquote, they wanted morals to be taught, this idea of abstinence. Okay? And they were unsuccessful. So in the early 2000s, what did you have? We already had public schools. A lot of people, didn't want to send their kids to public schools because of the sex education being taught. We had private schools. Some people couldn't afford that. So we even went one step further. You saw a large surge in homeschooling.
Gotcha.
And this homeschooling in the early 2000s grew out of that parental rights movement against sex education. That is what it came from.
Wow.
And so we fast forward to, okay, we've got all of this happening. Kids are coming out of the public schools. And every time we take kids out of public schools, we silo kids.
Okay.
Because if kids are not exposed to people that are different than them,
Right.
they're certainly not going to be at home.
Exactly.
Right? Our
Right.
families are our families. And so school is the first opportunity that kids have to be exposed to what's different. And that's what these parental rights groups, all the way back to the 1920s, have wanted to stop.
Wow.
They wanted to stop that.
Woo! I'm blown away because you're saying from the 1920s is where this. So were there names? You know what? Let me take a commercial break. Here's what I want you to ponder over, whether you want to say it or not. Let's talk about some of the names that as they traveled, and then who was behind what. Can we do that?
Yep, absolutely.
I'm going to take a commercial break. We're going to be back. Once again, my friend is in the house. I call him Roy. He says he's a little small attorney. He's big time. Somebody on my line says he's the best. So I'm just glad he's my friend. I'm telling you, I am honored. We'll be right back. We're at Heaven 100.1. It's Heaven on the Rooftop. Hey, y'all. How y'all doing? Hey, Sarah. How are you? Heaven 100.1. The Holiday Inn presents the season finale. December the 17th. Y'all doing all right? At 12 Hey, how are you? A delicious buffet. Hey, Velma. Then at 1 o'clock, by popular demand. How you doing, Walthief? Lance and Georgia. Brandon Robinson. Good morning, and New Generation. Hey, cousin Velma. At the Holiday Inn, December the 17th. For more information, Sarah Taylor. Trey Roy is the best. I know, y'all. That's why he's on my show. Yeah, I know, y'all.
Hi, it's Parker with Barrington Home Buyers, and I buy houses cash. Call me today.
Karen
at
Sands, Michael. Yeah, it is.
Home.
Oh, he's good.
I'll buy your
He's
house
phenomenal.
for cash
Yeah, y'all don't know.
cash
That's my
up
friend. He's gonna
I
teach
buy
me.
houses in any price range, all throughout
We all
the
gotta
Tri-County.
learn.
Then I'm gonna give him a radio job. He don't know it's a setup, but he's gonna have a radio
$1,000 in
job.
repairs? Great, because I love buying fix-up houses. Do you have a tenant living in your property? Not a problem. I'll buy your house
Sending me
with a
stuff
tenant
in
living
over
inside.
here.
Huh?
Do you think
People
your
are sending
property could
me
be
sending me
difficult
messages
to
over
Oh,
sell?
yeah,
here.
yeah, I'm
Watching
getting over
and
here
they're
too.
sending me
We've
information.
seen it all
Wow,
and
yeah.
bought it all. Do you want the best price for your house? Done. I'll beat any offer you have on the table. Remember, if you need cash fast,
There's a
I'll
whole
pay
new
you
school
cash
district
up
forming.
front.
I wasn't even
Call
aware
me
of
today.
this.
Yeah.
843
Friend of mine, Daniel
800
Gracie's
home.
making
843
sending this
800
Ashley River
home.
Classic.
That's 843 800
Six-member board
HOME.
includes 3 leaders in the Charleston Moms for Liberty chapter using
Wow.
the Hillsdale curriculum, which I didn't know about.
Wow.
Some
Wow. Okay. All right, let's go. We're ready. 20 seconds.
Foot care conditions make many people hide their feet when the weather heats up. If your foot health is holding you back from enjoying this summer to its fullest, it's time to visit Physicians Foot Care, where we treat all manner of foot conditions and injuries to get you back on your feet and back into life. Visit physiciansfootcare.com to book your appointment today.
Alrighty, Heaven 100.1. You know, we talked about it earlier, and I want to know because I think the journey is important, Roy. Believe it or not, you know, our country does a great job of disguising the poison. And I just say, you know, when it comes to food, when it comes to a lot of things that we do, they do a great job because we don't realize that it hadn't been really abolished, but it just changes.
Right.
And so if you're not aware of how it changed or what it is, you know, during the journey, you'll get lost in the shuffle.
That's right.
So we're talking about 1920s, and you said you called it the KKK, the
Right.
Ku Klux Klan. So now here we are. So how did these names change throughout the times of from 20 to 50 to where
Yeah,
are we?
so basically what has happened, obviously, that was actually the Grand Dragon. That was in Oregon. That was in a pamphlet that was circulating. But what has happened over the course of time?
And this is public information.
This
sir.
is public information. You can go look it up for yourself. But what has happened over the course of time is as groups have become less popular, new groups turn up, right? So MLK says the arc of the moral universe is long, but it bends towards justice.
Right.
And so we're always moving towards justice. We're moving towards good, but these groups are in there slowing us down, trying to slow us down. You know, and the current iteration goes all the way back to 1981. That was the year after Ronald Reagan got elected. And something called the Council for National Policy was formed.
Okay.
Okay, it was formed by white televangelists.
Yeah, I remember
It was
that.
formed by Republican oligarchs and Republican strategists.
Okay.
Really rich people. And what they wanted to do is use that election of Reagan to try to get a little more piece of the electorate. And you'll remember the concept of the Reagan Democrat, right?
Yes.
And so they took very specific issues and they followed them all the way through. Well, fast forward. They created a subgroup called the Leadership Institute, which gives trainings on campaigns, things of that nature to be leaders in the political movement, in the media movement. They just hosted a training in Rock Hill with the South Carolina and National Moms for Liberty last week.
Right here in South Carolina.
Right here in South Carolina. They were the largest sponsor of the Moms for Liberty 2022 Summit in Tampa, where Betsy DeVos, the former Secretary of Education, came out and publicly said, which we all knew to be true, but she said, I personally still think the Department of Education should not exist. Okay, that's what these people believe. These people believe public education should not exist because they know education is the path to a free society,
Yeah,
and they don't want a
yeah.
free society.
Wow.
And so that is how it has developed. And you know, 2021, Moms for Liberty comes on the scene. So they take what is then happening in the world, COVID is happening.
Right.
And the Republican electorate, a guy called Christian Ziegler, he's the vice chair of the Florida Republican Party.
He is.
He's looking for a way to find women that are in their 20s and 30s to get involved. He's trying to get that little slice of the electorate. His wife, Bridget, one of the 3 original founders of Moms for Liberty, ran for a school board seat in Sarasota. That's 2021. Bridget steps back, lets the other 2 women, Marie and Tiffany, and what they do is they start advocating against mask mandates and mandatory vaccines because for a certain section of the electorate, that was a big deal. They didn't want their kids to have to wear masks. And I'll tell you, early on, I have young kids, as you know,
Yeah,
4
yeah.
now. At that time, it was a battle
Right.
every morning with the
Right.
masks. Okay, eventually we got used to it, but they used that to get this group off the ground. Within 1 month of their founding, of their filing their paperwork, they were on Rush Limbaugh, they were on Fox News,
Yes.
they were on Steve Bannon's television
Yeah,
show.
yeah,
They were
yeah.
all out there. Well, how does that happen? It happens because they're linked to the Council for National Policy. They're linked to the Leadership Institute. They're linked to these groups that have existed for a very long time. It's just a different flavor of the same poison.
Wow. Let me ask you this question, Roy. Whew. There's so many. Where do you start? I mean, so for those that are listening today, and and we'll do the replay. So, what is the definition to Moms for Liberty? Because again, Roy, when I first heard it, you could not have told me this wasn't the greatest movement ever.
Right.
I'm being honest.
Right.
And I can imagine there's a lot of other folks thinking the same thing, even now, because this kind of information is not being shared. That's why I brought you in, because I wanted someone who was going to just put the facts out there and say, well, hey, you need to know. And, this is not what you think it is. So what are the major growth? Because here's what's being pushed. A lot of folks are saying, well, it's racism. Some folks are saying, well, it's controlling. It's this, it's that. Let's put the facts out there. What is Moms for Liberty agenda?
Their agenda is chaos. And,
Yeah.
and chaos works for them because they do not want public education to happen because they have found that portion of the electorate. At the end of the day, this is about getting votes for far right-wing extremists. That's
Okay.
what it's about.
Okay.
And this group allows them to get a little slice of the electorate excited over a few issues that otherwise they would not be engaged. They would not be excited. And you can go actually to the Moms for Liberty Wikipedia page and read the Southern Poverty Law Center's report. It's a civil rights organization. You know, the Southern Poverty Law Center. They're the ones that have called out the white nationalists. The KKK is kind
Right.
of how that all started.
Correct.
But they've labeled Moms for Liberty a far-right extremist organization, criticized for harassment, deepening divisions among parents, making education more difficult, and for having close ties to the Republican Party rather than being an actual grassroots effort. So let's be clear. A lot of these people aren't even moms. They don't even have kids in public schools.
Wow.
A lot of these kids that these people have are in private schools already.
Wow.
And so this is not an issue born out of concern for their children. This is an issue born out of control and chaos. That's what they want. They want control, and they get that control by creating chaos. And all you have to do is go down to a school board meeting in
Yeah.
Charleston County
Yeah.
and watch it.
Wow.
But they don't mind the chaos. That is the thing we have to wrap our head around. This is not two different ideologies, two different viewpoints that are opposed. They want one thing, other people want another.
Right.
They don't want anything to work. They
I
don't
got you.
want the Department of Education to exist. They don't want public schools to exist. And so the more chaos they can cause by firing superintendents or putting them on leave and all of this sort of thing, that is their agenda.
Wow.
It's not a means to an end, it is the end. Chaos is the end. And
Yeah, because I was not, sorry for interrupting, but
Yeah.
that's why I was blown away. They said they put Dr. Gallon on suspension because of allegedly that there was some type of someone felt threatened or whatever. And then you come back to report and said, well, that's not true. He didn't do anything.
Right.
But then you decided, man, let's pressure him to accept his resignation or whatever the case might be.
Right.
So it's like, what was your agenda all along?
And it was all a lie. And the lady that came forward admitted that what was in the email was not accurate, but
Wow.
it gave them what they needed to create the chaos. And so now, Moms for Liberty has captured a lot of school boards. I mean, they've captured the school board in Charleston County, South Carolina.
Yeah.
A little blue dot and a big sea of red.
Yeah.
They have captured that school board. They've done that across the country. We actually have one of the largest chapters of Moms for Liberty in a blue area right here in Charleston. And the mask mandates went out. So that their mission was accomplished.
Yeah,
They should go
yeah,
away,
yeah,
right?
right.
No. What do they focus on next? LGBTQ rights,
Yeah, yeah.
race and ethnicity. They call it all critical race theory. That's not what it is. We're going back to the 50s and 60s. They don't want race taught because they think if we talk about discrimination, that's what makes it exist. No. That's what makes people aware that it's wrong.
Wow. Ooh. Whew, man, you're dropping some nuggets today. And the audience are going like, wow, thank you. Appreciate the information. So in other words, you know, what you're saying is they find a candidate that believes in their ideology, and then they don't endorse, but they kind of, you know,
Recommend.
Right. Well, the word recommend, from what we found the other night, means to endorse.
Right.
And so lately there's been some folks that came out with the support of Moms for Liberty, which it was no hidden secret. Candidate for president, Nikki Haley.
Right.
And then recently you said that the mayor, what was City of Charleston?
Right. Cogswell.
Wow.
Right. And so, I mean, you can trace this all the way back. So they started advocating against race and ethnicity, LGBTQ rights. And then in 2023, they start getting involved in other types of elections via recommendations, right? So we talked about that. They recommended Cogswell for mayor, right? We know that. And so that was put out. That was a big issue in the mayoral campaign. So what happens just yesterday, okay? Well, let me back up a little bit first. Nikki Haley was at the Moms for Liberty Summit. Okay, Nikki Haley was there. Nikki Haley is supported by some of the top brass in the Council for National Policy.
Okay.
Yesterday, this just happened yesterday, she gets the endorsement from the Americans for Prosperity's PAC, which is a Koch brothers PAC. Okay, she gets that endorsement yesterday. Koch brothers, big supporters of the Council for National Policy. They co-support groups. Okay. Just happened yesterday, she gets that endorsement over Trump. It was a big deal. They're big in right-wing conservative circles. So what else happened yesterday? Cogswell on Fox News national television, his first political act as mayor-elect in the city of Charleston, endorses Nikki Haley for president.
Wow. Ooh. Man.
The nonpartisan. Remember? This is a nonpartisan race.
Right.
You can go back and look at the photos. But Moms for Liberty was involved in our local elections. They recommended candidates. One of the candidates won very narrowly. But remember, that's the point. The point is, let's just get a slice of the electorate engaged that we otherwise would not get, because it might be able to give us a close victory in an otherwise close race. And that's what happened. And we just saw it yesterday. 2014, the CMP Gold Circle directory was published. This is when they were a little bit more out of the shadows. Betsy DeVos's mother was in the Gold Circle of members. Okay, so this is all connected. You know, you talk about this idea of this vast kind of right-wing conspiracy. It's all connected. Moms for Liberty is just the latest name on an old game which is focused on discrimination, dividing people, and creating chaos in government because they do not want government to work for the people.
Okay, makes sense. All right. Yeah, here's where I am. I just got fed up with everybody having different opinions and stuff, and I said, let me ask someone who can, and I'll be honest with you, my audience has been asking me questions, and one thing about me, if I don't know something, I'm going to tap into someone who knows.
Right.
Okay, and I heard you do a speech maybe a couple of weeks ago, and when I heard it, it made sense to say, okay, let me bring someone on who could strategically just actually inform the people and say, here's what's really happening. And so where do we go from here? You know, and then what I'm going to do, because I've got to wrap it up, I'm going to bring you back and do a whole show on a Saturday. We're available. We're going to do a whole show about where, you know, some ideas that we need to talk about. So what does we need to do going forward now as a people, as public education pretty much?
Yeah, I mean, what we have to do is we have to stand together against this group. We have to vote. We have to speak out. We have to realize that the Moms for Liberty are not moms for the most part. They are not for liberty, and we need to speak that. And, you know, one of the reasons that I got involved in this is because I saw this group pop up, and overnight, it was like a sensation. And a lot of people don't know this. Of course, I'm a lawyer now. You know, I help injured folks and all like that. But before that, I went to Harvard. I studied American politics, focused on the South. And so I started doing some research and connecting the dots. And that's how this came about. And we have to educate people This is a group that is aligned with the worst in America. The Proud Boys, racist, discriminatory, fascist groups. I mean, another just example. One of the biggest supporters of CMP, of Moms for Liberty, is a public area. It's a lady named Julie Jenkins Pincelli. Okay, she donated almost $500,000 to fund the rally before the January 6th insurrection.
Wow.
Okay, that's public knowledge. You can Google her name and look it up. She was also a huge supporter of this. And so this is not a grassroots movement of moms that are concerned about, a paragraph in a book in a library, maybe in some school somewhere that talks about, how you can have sexual intercourse.
Right.
That's not what this is about.
I got you.
That's the smoke screen.
Got you. Okay.
This is about chaos in government. That's what they're focused on. They're being very successful at it. And in addition to Cogswell, they recommended a candidate out on Johns Island. Jim McBride was their candidate for city council. He defeated a lady, a highly qualified lady named Stephanie Hodges, barely.
Yeah.
But he won.
Yeah, he did.
And so he's in there.
Wow.
And so we're going to see what this group demands of its new acolytes in City Hall, the same way that we know they've been making those demands on the school board. And we have to keep showing up. We have to keep showing up because they want us to get tired, but we will not get tired, right?
From my side of the street, if you dance to the music, you got to pay the piper.
That's right.
So,
That's right.
Wow. Roy, thank you so much, man. Can you come back?
Yeah, be glad to.
I want to bring you back, and we do a Saturday show where we got the whole hour to really inform, because that's really what it's about with me. I like to inform people, especially when my listeners say, okay, Chef, can you talk about this? I said, well, some things before the election time, I can't.
Right.
Right. But after the election's over, I love to find people who can really rightfully, talk about these things, who can share and say, well, here's what's really happening.
Right.
And so they can't say Chef said it. They can say that someone who knows what's going on, and say that again. Now, before you became a lawyer, what was your studies?
Before I became a lawyer, I went to Harvard. That's where I got my undergraduate degree. I studied government, American government,
right,
and I focused on politics in the American South.
Wow.
And that is where a lot of this originates.
Wow.
Because, in the 50s and 60s, where was that battle being fought?
Yeah.
Right here.
Right here.
Against black people, against brown people, against people that were different from the majority.
Wow.
And now these folks aren't in the majority.
No.
And so they got to find their little slivers to try to get back to a majority.
Thank you so much, Roy. Man, we're going to do this again. I greatly appreciate it. You've been wonderful. You've been awesome,
Glad to do it. Thanks for having me on.
All righty, this has been a great one. Heaven Talk right here on Heaven 100.1.
Right.
And so she goes into, so he called me up, so we were talking about all of the events and stuff. He's like, Chef, well, what is Moms for Liberty? I said, stay tuned. I said, let me call. Let me call Roy. Let's put some facts to this thing so people can.
It's interesting because just yesterday. I mean, this is the latest update. So yesterday, the Koch brothers organization endorsed Nikki Haley for president. Okay, so they endorsed her yesterday. Who else endorsed Nikki Haley yesterday? Right after that, within hours, William Cogswell went on Fox News to endorse her. William Cogswell, Sun Post and Courier this morning. I mean, the same day. Okay.